You were never meant to be ordinary. They knew it before you did. That's why they tried to break you. Before you even understood your own strength, they saw it. A fire buried deep, a force waiting to rise. And that terrified them. So they whispered doubts into your ears before you could even dream. They planted their fears inside you, watered them with dismissive glances and laughter laced with cruelty. They built walls around you and told you they were there to keep you safe. But the truth? They were never meant to protect you. They were meant to contain you, to shrink you, to keep you small enough to fit inside their world. Because the moment you stepped beyond their grasp, the moment you discovered your power, their lies would crumble like dust. The weight of their doubt was placed on your shoulders before you even had a chance to prove them wrong. They decided your worth before you could decide for yourself. They marked your destiny with their expectations, carving a path they thought you would never escape. Every time they dismissed you, every time they laughed behind your back, every time they said, "You'll never make it," they were handing you something priceless. Their disbelief was never your burden, it was your throne. Their rejection, their mockery, their silence when you needed their support the most, all of it was shaping something within you, something indestructible. And now, here you stand, holding the weight of their regret like a crown. Every rejection, every laugh, every whisper, they carved it, piece by piece. They thought they were breaking you. They thought they were leaving scars that would never heal. But scars are proof of survival. Scars are reminders that you walked through fire and came out the other side. And now, those same people who doubted you, they don't know what to do with what they've created. They don't know how to face the fact that the person they tried to tear down is standing taller than they ever imagined. Because now, their words don't hold power over you anymore. Their opinions don't define you. The weight of their doubt was never yours to carry. It was theirs. And the moment you realized that, you stopped walking in their shadow. You stopped bending to fit inside their expectations. You stopped waiting for permission to become who you were always meant to be. This is not the story of defeat. This is not the story of someone who gave in to the weight of the world, who let doubt sink into their bones and hold them captive. No, this is the story of someone who rose, someone who turned every whispered insult into a war cry, who took the stones thrown at them and built an empire. This is the story of someone who realized that every time they were pushed down, it was just another opportunity to rise higher. They thought they were burying you, they thought they were silencing you, but they didn't realize you were a seed, and now you've grown into something they can no longer ignore. You will wear the weight of their regret like a crown, not as a symbol of vengeance, not as a way to prove them wrong, but as a declaration of truth. You were never broken. You were never lost. You were simply waiting for the moment to rise. And now that moment has come. The world is watching, and they will see what happens when someone refuses to be defined by the limits placed upon them. They will see what happens when resilience turns into power, when pain transforms into purpose. They will see what happens when you stop living for their approval and start living for yourself. And when they look back, when they finally realize what they lost, when they understand the weight of their own regret, that will be the crown you wear with pride. They never saw the fire in your eyes. Or maybe they did, and that's why they tried to put it out. You spent years waiting for someone to recognize what you carried inside you, to see beyond the surface, to validate the dreams you held close to your heart. But instead, they looked right through you, as if you were nothing more than a shadow. You begged for their approval, and they handed you silence. You reached for connection, for understanding, but all you received was indifference. And that is a wound that doesn't heal easily. Because rejection doesn't just bruise the skin, it carves itself into the soul. You learned young that love was conditional, that belonging was something you had to earn. You tried to be good enough, smart enough, strong enough, anything to make them see you. But no matter how much of yourself you gave, it was never enough. They dismissed your voice before you even had a chance to raise it. They shut doors before you could knock. They laughed at your dreams before you had the chance to chase them. And so, you began to shrink. Not because you weren't capable, but because the world around you convinced you that you didn't belong. The betrayal stung the most. It wasn't just strangers who doubted you. It was the ones who were supposed to stand by your side, the ones who claimed to care, the ones who should have lifted you up instead of pushing you down. They were the voices that should have echoed an encouragement, but instead they whispered words that made you second-guess everything you knew about yourself. The second you rose to new levels, it's hard not to wonder, they told you to be realistic. They told you not to expect too much. They told you that dreaming too big was a setup for disappointment. And in their warnings, in their hesitation, you saw something terrifying. They had already given up on their own dreams, and now they wanted you to do the same. The world that dismissed you, the people who claimed you would never make it. They became the weight on your shoulders. They built walls around you with their doubt. They didn't have to chain you down with force because they did something far more insidious. They convinced you to do it yourself. They made you question your own potential. They made you believe that the fire inside you was nothing more than a flicker. Every lie they told you became a brick in the cage they built around your mind. You're not smart enough. You don't have what it takes. People like you don't succeed. The words weren't just spoken, they were imprinted into your bones, carrying the weight of generations of fear, of limitation, of playing small. They wanted you to believe it because they needed it to be true. If you proved them wrong, then they would have to face the reality that they had settled for less, and that was a truth they could not bear to confront. So the voices followed you everywhere. When you looked in the mirror, you saw their doubts staring back at you. When you reached for something bigger, you heard them whisper, "Who do you think you are?" They wanted you to be afraid. They wanted you to hesitate, because hesitation keeps people in their place. It keeps people quiet. It keeps people from rising. And for a while, you listened. Maybe they were right. Maybe you were asking for too much. Maybe you should have been satisfied with what you had. The doubt crept in like a slow-moving poison, sinking into your thoughts, twisting your dreams into something unreachable. You started questioning yourself before anyone else could. You silenced your own voice before the world had the chance to do it for you. You convinced yourself that maybe it was easier to stay small, to not fight, to accept what was given instead of reaching for what was possible. The battle was never just against the world, it was against yourself. Against the part of you that wanted to believe but had been broken too many times to try again. The part of you that carried every moment of rejection, every dismissive glance, every no that had ever been thrown in your face. The part of you that had been told over and over again that you were not enough. And so, you almost believed them. Almost. There were nights when the weight of their words felt too heavy to carry. When you stared at the ceiling and wondered if it was worth it. If trying, if fighting, if pushing forward even made a difference. When you thought about letting go of the dream just to make the pain stop. Because there is a unique kind of exhaustion that comes with constantly proving yourself, with constantly defending your right to want more. You were on the edge of giving up. And maybe, if things had gone differently, if you had let that doubt settle in just a little deeper, if you had let their words define you for just a little longer, you might have. But something inside you, something they could never touch, refused to let go. A voice, quiet at first but growing stronger, whispered something else. They were wrong. And the moment you started to consider that truth, the moment you let it sink in just a little deeper than the doubt, everything started to change. There was a night when you thought it was over, a night when the weight of everything they said, everything they did, came crashing down like a relentless storm. You had fought for so long, pushed for so much, and yet no matter how far you stretched, it felt like you were never enough. The voices had grown louder, their shadows had stretched wider, and for the first time, you started to believe that maybe they had been right all along. Maybe you were fighting a battle that had already been lost. That night, the air was thick with the echoes of your doubts. The world around you felt too quiet, too still, as if it were waiting for you to surrender. The exhaustion ran deeper than your bones. It lived in your soul. The weight of proving yourself, of pushing forward, of carrying every scar, every failure, every disappointment. It became too much. You sank into the kind of silence that doesn't comfort, but suffocates. And in that silence, the truth you had feared the most whispered back to you. Maybe this is all you'll ever be. You stared at the ceiling, at the darkness stretching above you, and for the first time, you thought about letting go. About what it would mean to stop fighting. About what it would feel like to finally stop proving. To finally stop caring. Maybe they were right. Maybe you were chasing something that was never meant for you. Maybe you were just another name in a long list of people who wanted more, but never made it. And if that was true, then what was the point of continuing? You tried to hold on to the spark that had kept you moving for so long, but it was slipping through your fingers. Hope had never felt so distant, and failure had never felt so close. You had given everything, and yet the world refused to give anything back. And in that moment, in that heavy, unbearable moment, you asked yourself the question that had been buried beneath all the fight, all the resilience, all the fire you had tried to keep alive. What if I am everything they said I was? The thought settled into your chest like a weight you weren't sure you could lift. The temptation to give in, to walk away, to let go. It was real, because there is something strangely comforting about surrender. About shrinking into the version of yourself that the world had always expected you to be. About silencing your dreams before they could be broken again. You imagined it, the life they had wanted for you, a life of quiet mediocrity, a life where you never reached too high, never asked for too much, a life where you stayed exactly where they put you, exactly where they felt comfortable keeping you. There would be no more struggle, no more fighting against the tide, no more resistance. And maybe, in a way, That would be easier. Maybe it would hurt less. But the more you thought about it, the more something inside you started to stir. Something ancient, something untamed, something that refused to be buried beneath the weight of their expectations. Because deep down, you knew this was never about you. This was about them. They needed you to fail. They needed you to crumble. Not because you weren't capable, but because your success would be a reminder of everything they were too afraid to reach for themselves. If you stayed small, they could justify their own limitations. If you gave up, they wouldn't have to question why they did. Your failure was their comfort. Your silence was their security. Because as long as you remained beneath them, they would never have to face the truth. You were always capable of more than they ever dared to be. And so, you sat in the darkness of that night, weighed down by every reason to quit. But then, a thought rose from the depths of that despair. What if I didn't? What if you didn't give up? What if you didn't surrender? What if instead of breaking, you used this moment as the catalyst for something greater? What if you didn't look to the sun? What if you didn't go for more? What if, instead of letting their doubts define you, you used them as the fire that would forge your strength? They had counted on you to fall. They had expected you to disappear into the background, to blend into the silence. But what if you refused? What if you did the one thing they never thought possible? What if you rose? There was a moment when something shifted, a flicker, a breath, a whisper of rebellion against everything you had been told. It wasn't loud, not at first. It wasn't an explosion of certainty or a grand, cinematic moment of triumph. It was small, a thought, barely formed, a feeling, barely noticeable. A quiet defiance that sparked inside you like the first ember of a fire waiting to rage. You were never weak. They only convinced you that you were. They had spent years planting that belief inside you, watering it with their doubts, reinforcing it with their dismissals. They had spoken their lies with such confidence that even you started to mistake them for truth. But now, standing at the edge of surrender, staring down into the abyss they had prepared for you, you felt something they never wanted you to feel. Doubt in them. What if they were wrong? What if you weren't weak? What if everything they had said, everything they had done wasn't proof of your limitations, but proof of their fear? What if their rejection wasn't a reflection of your worth, but of their own insecurities? That thought burned through you, cutting through the darkness like a blade. Because if that was true, if they had been lying to you this whole time, then what else had you believed that wasn't real? They underestimated you. They saw your struggles, your hesitation, your moments of uncertainty, and mistook them for proof that you would never rise. They thought your silence meant you had nothing left to say. They thought your setbacks meant you would never recover. But they had never understood the truth about you. You weren't weak. You were waiting. Every wound they left on you had become something more than just pain. It had become armor. Every betrayal, every doubt, every whispered insult, every door slammed in your face, it had all been shaping you, strengthening you. They thought they were breaking you, but they were building you. And now, the weight of all that pain wasn't something holding you down. It was the steel in your spine. It was the fire in your veins. You had spent so long believing that their words held power over you, but in that moment, you realized the truth. They only had power because you gave it to them, and now you were taking it back. The decision wasn't made in a grand, dramatic moment. It wasn't born from anger or revenge. It was quiet, steady, unshakable. You decided to rise. The first step wasn't easy. It never is. The moment you break free from the chains of doubt, the world pushes back. The moment you reclaim your power, the voices scream louder, trying to drag you back into the silence. But this time, you didn't listen, did you? This time, their words didn't reach you the way they used to. Because something inside you had shifted. For the first time in a long time, you heard something else. Your own voice. It had been there all along, buried beneath their expectations, drowned out by their doubts. But now, it was rising, growing stronger. And with every step you took, with every moment you chose to believe in yourself instead of them, that voice became undeniable. You were no longer asking for permission. You were no longer waiting for validation. You had spent too much time in the shadows, too much time living for their approval. But now, you were walking towards something bigger. Now, you were stepping into the light. You are not what they called you. You are not the names they threw at you in anger, nor the labels they stamped onto your skin like a brand meant to mark you forever. You are not their insults. You are not their doubts. You are not the version of yourself they tried to force you to become. No, you are something else entirely. You are what you choose to become. For too long, you lived under the weight of their words. You let them shape you, define you, limit you. You let them convince you that you were small, unworthy, incapable. But that version of you, the one who waited for permission, who carried the burden of their expectations like a chain around your neck, That version is gone. The moment you chose to rise, the moment you decided to break free, something changed. You are no longer their victim. You are no longer bound by the lies they fed you. You are something more now. You are a warrior. And a warrior does not beg for recognition. A warrior does not seek validation from those who never believed in them to begin with. A warrior stands, even when the world expects them to fall. A warrior moves forward, even when the path is lined with thorns. A warrior does not ask if they are worthy. They decide that they are. They thought the pain they caused would weaken you. They thought the rejection, the betrayals, the endless doors slammed in your face would be enough to make you give up. But they never understood that pain is not the end of a story. It is the beginning. Every wound they inflicted, every moment of doubt they planted in your mind, every time they made you feel like you were nothing, it was all fuel. They tried to break you, but all they did was give you something to fight against. And now that fight has turned into fire. The fire of rejection has become the forge of your strength. The hurt, the loneliness, the feeling of being cast aside, it all burned. But instead of turning to ash, it turned into something unbreakable. You took the pain they handed you, and you reforged it into something they cannot touch. Your pain is no longer your prison. It is your weapon. It is the very thing that will set you apart, that will carry you forward, that will remind you every single day that you survived. And survival is only the beginning, because now they cannot ignore what is happening. Now they cannot pretend that you are the same person they dismissed. Something is shifting, something undeniable. You did something they swore you never would. You proved them wrong. The first step. The first undeniable victory. The first moment when you stood in the aftermath of everything they tried to do to you, and you realized you were still standing, stronger, fiercer, more determined than ever. And they felt it. They saw it. The same people who doubted you, who laughed at your dreams, who said you would never make it. Now they are silent because the proof is in front of them, undeniable and unshakable. You did it. You took the first step towards something greater, something they never thought you would reach. And this is only the beginning. The first win, the first step toward undeniable greatness. Because now, the momentum is yours. Now the crown is no longer being built, it is forged. And soon, the world will see exactly what they tried so hard to bury. At first, they don't say anything. The ones who doubted you, the ones who laughed, the ones who never believed. You can see it in their eyes before they ever find the words. A flicker of something unfamiliar, something they never expected to feel when they looked at you. It's not just surprise, it's not just shock, it's regret. They were so sure, so certain that you would fail, that you would never rise beyond the walls they built around you. They had dismissed you without a second thought, cast you aside like you were forgettable, unimportant. But now something has shifted. They are looking at you, really looking, maybe for the first time, and they don't know what to do with what they see. Because you are not who you used to be. You are not standing in the same place where they left you. You are not cowering in the shadows, waiting for permission to exist. You are not seeking their approval, their validation, their acceptance. No. You are beyond them now, and they feel it. The silence is deafening. Where there were once words meant to keep you down, now there is nothing. Where there was once laughter at your expense, now there is hesitation, because for the first time they are forced to face the truth they never wanted to acknowledge. They were wrong about you. They had built their certainty on the idea that you would stay small, that you would always be beneath them. And now they don't know how to process the fact that you are standing taller than they ever imagined. This is the turning point, the moment they cannot deny your rise. They might try to hide it, they might pretend that nothing has changed. They might act as if they never doubted you at all, but the truth is in their eyes. The truth is in their hesitation, in the way they struggle to find words where there once was only arrogance. Because you are not a shadow anymore. They used to overlook you, but now they see you. They used to dismiss you, but now they acknowledge you. And that is something they never prepared for. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. In their minds, you had already lost. You had already accepted your place, already given up the fight. But here you are, unshaken, unbroken, unstoppable. And now, the victory is yours. But it is not the kind of victory they assumed you wanted. This was never about revenge, never about making them suffer, never about forcing them to admit their mistakes. No, this was something greater, because this was never about proving them wrong. This was about proving yourself right. You didn't rise to make them regret their choices. You didn't fight to force them to see your worth. You did this because you deserved it, because you always had the power, because you refused to let their doubts become your reality. And now, you stand here, looking at the very people who once made you question your place in this world. But you don't need their approval anymore. You don't need their apologies, because the only validation you ever needed, the only truth that ever mattered, was the one you found within yourself. And that is the real victory. You are everything they feared you would become. Not broken, not forgotten, not invisible. For so long they tried to write you off, tried to erase you before you even had the chance to make your mark. They dismissed you, overlooked you, treated you as if you were just another face in the crowd, someone who would never amount to anything. But now, the truth is undeniable. You did not disappear. You did not crumble. You did not stay in the box they built for you. You rose. And now you stand in the place they swore you would never reach. They told themselves that you were too weak, that you weren't capable, that you would never make it. But now they are faced with the truth. The one thing they spent years trying to deny. You were never weak. You were never incapable. You were never less than. They just needed to believe that you were. Because if you had been weak, if you had been incapable, then they wouldn't have to face the truth about themselves. Now, their whispers have turned into silence. Their laughter has turned into hesitation, and their certainty has turned into regret. But here's the thing, they cannot take credit for your rise. They will try. They will act as if they always knew, as if they always supported you, as if they were never part of the doubt, never part of the pain. They will rewrite history in their minds, convincing themselves that they were on your side all along. But you know the truth. You remember the moments they ignored you, the moments they spoke against you, the moments they made you feel like you would never be enough. And now that weight is no longer yours to carry. It is theirs. Their regret is now the burden they must bear. They will look at you and wonder what would have happened if they had believed in you from the start, if they had stood beside you instead of against you, if they had lifted you up instead of trying to keep you down. But those questions will never be answered, because the time for their belief has passed. You did this without them. You built yourself from the ground up. You found your strength, not in their approval, but in their doubt. You found your fire, not in their encouragement, but in their rejection. And now you carry something they will never understand. A new identity, a new purpose, because you were never meant to stay small. That was never your destiny. The world tried to make you believe it was, tried to convince you that you belonged in the background, that you should lower your voice, lower your expectations, lower your dreams. But they were wrong. You were meant to rise, to take up space, to walk with power, with purpose, with undeniable strength. And now you don't just wear their regret like a crown. You rule your own story. You are not waiting for anyone to hand you a place at the table. You are building your own kingdom. You are creating your own path. You are setting your own rules. Because this world was never meant to break you. It was meant to fear you. And now it does. The battle isn't over yet, because even now, even after everything, doubt lingers. It waits in the shadows, whispering, tempting. It asks a single question, one designed to shake you to your core. Will you wear the crown, or will you hand it back? Because wearing it means accepting who you are. It means owning your power, standing in it, refusing to shrink again. It means looking at the world, not with hesitation, not with fear, but with the certainty that you belong. But doubt, oh, doubt is a cunning thing. It will creep in, even now, even after all you've overcome. It will tell you that maybe this was all a mistake, that maybe you were never meant to rise this high. It will remind you of all the times you failed, of all the times you questioned yourself, of all the people who still don't believe in you. And this is the final confrontation. This is the moment where you decide if you will step fully into your power, or if you will let the echoes of the past pull you back. Because the truth is, the world has tried to make you doubt yourself for so long, that even now, even after proving them wrong, you might still feel that pull, the urge to step back into the familiar, into the version of yourself that didn't ask for too much, didn't take up too much space, didn't dare to dream too big. But that version of you no longer exists. You have come too far. You have fought too hard. You have endured too much to turn back now. So the question remains, will you take what is yours? Will you step forward and claim the life you were meant to live? Will you embrace the truth that has been building inside you all along? Because this is your time. This is your name. This is your legacy. No one else can do this for you. No one else can step into your power. No one else can make the decision to rise. No one else can carry the weight of your crown. You must choose. You must decide to stop playing small, to stop asking for permission, to stop waiting for someone else to tell you that you are ready, because you are ready. The world is watching, waiting to see if you will rise or if you will let doubt win one last time. But you already know the answer. You did not come this far just to falter now. You are not the person they thought you were. You are not the person you thought you were. You are something greater. And it is time to rise. Time to step into the power that has always been inside you. Time to wear the crown, not as a burden, not as a weight, but as a symbol of everything you have overcome. This is not the moment for hesitation. This is the moment where you decide, once and for all, who you are going to be. Because the world will move on, with or without you. The opportunities will come and go whether you seize them or not. The only question is whether you will step forward or remain standing at the edge of your own greatness. So I ask you again, will you wear the crown or will you hand it back? Because there is only one answer. You will rise. Because this is your time. This is not the end of the story. It is only the beginning. For so long, you thought the struggle was the story. You thought the pain, the rejection, the battles against doubt, that was the entirety of your journey. You believed that once you made it past the hardship, once you proved yourself, once you finally wore the crown that was forged from everything you endured, that would be the ending. The crown, but this was never about an ending. This was about becoming. Because strength is not a destination. Power is not a place you arrive at. The fire inside you does not stop burning once you've won. No, this is something else. This is something eternal. This is the beginning of the life that was always meant for you. You do not stop here. You do not stand at the top and look back, satisfied that you proved them wrong. No, you move forward. You build. You create. You continue. Because now your journey is no longer just about you. It is about the ones who come after you. The ones who are still trapped in the doubts you once carried. The ones who have yet to find their own power. The ones who still believe the lies they were told about themselves. You were once in their place, waiting for someone to tell you that you were enough, waiting for someone to show you the way forward. But now, you are the one who leads. The story that wants to find you is no longer your prison. It is your legacy. Because this is the truth. Your strength does not exist in isolation. Your rise is not just for you. Your power is proof to the world that no one has to remain what they were told to be, that no one has to settle for the life they were handed, that no one has to stay small just because others are afraid of their greatness. The echoes of your transformation will be felt far beyond you. They will ripple through time, through lives you may never even know you've touched. Your strength, your resilience, your refusal to break, it will inspire more than you can ever imagine. And that is what they feared the most. Not just that you would rise, but that you would light the way for others. That you would prove that no one has to accept the limitations placed upon them. That you would break the cycle of doubt and silence that they relied on to keep you contained. That your strength would not end with you, but would multiply. That is the legacy of strength. And now, as you stand at the beginning of this new chapter, with the weight of their regret resting upon your head like a crown, there is only one thing left to do. No hesitation, no uncertainty. No more waiting for permission, because you already know the truth. Their regret is the crown you wear with pride, and now it is time to rule.